Okay, so my friend at work commissioned me to do a Tree of Life project for her, and we went with a different design for her project that I'll do in a different video. But I was also playing with this yin-yang mashup idea, and Midjourney made this design that I was just entranced by. And this is how it printed. And obviously I need to do a better job at defining the edges so that you can read the yin-yang symbolism more clearly. So I printed it again, just a hair bigger. This is 150 millimeters, this is 160. And I also printed two full plate size that I'm going to do to sell while I'm at it. So I'm going to do it with a brush this time, see how it goes. Alright, so I'm going to print this little one, and I think that I'm going to add a little bit of green to the white and a little bit of copper to the brown on this one. So we have a little bit of the red-green contrast in addition to the dark light. So let's try that. And I'm going to take one of the sponge fourths and cut it so that I have more of a detail wedge to work with. And I'll go as I start with brown. Okay, and when you're doing this, then make sure you go pretty delicately. You can always come back and add more color, but if you immediately push it too far down in, then you're going to lose all your shadows and lose that contrast. So just make sure that you start light and work up. Okay, and what I'm doing here is just trying to work the copper color back into the background, back behind the leaves, so that there's a little bit of a feeling of a continuous color behind everything. And I'm really trying to soak the copper all the way up flush to the branches as I do it also, so that there's just a little bit more definition happening. Okay, and on this side of the line, I try to get the color right up against the edge, and then I create almost a little bit of a soft fade with the sponge eventually, carrying that all the way down and trying to just create that little bit of a gradient all the way down. But then when I get to the bottom, the edges of those spirals are so raised and defined that I try to preserve a lot of the blackness in that area, just sort of wiping it off on the ridges. But I highlight the ridges a little bit extra just to still give it that little bit of definition and still give your eye that visual aid of carrying through the end of the line without actually having to sacrifice the shadows all of the way by just sponging in the line entirely. That's pretty messy, so I'm going to get a water sponge. Okay, now we can kind of clean up some of these raised surfaces a little bit. The best that you can, it doesn't have to be perfect. I always think that it's better to leave a little bit on rather than completely ruin the background. Okay, and need a little bit in that spot too. Okay, I'm just trying to make sure that that continues well. I'm not going to draw on the shadows, but I'm going to emphasize these couple lines just to give the same effect of boldness on the bottom. Okay, there we go. Now that you get your long swoops, make sure that you have your gradients in. Oops, I went over again, so I'm gonna just clean that up. Okay, and now I'm gonna do this white pearl. And again, remember to start soft and build up. Just have a light touch. Oh, that's what I forgot. The copper. I'm just going to take some straight copper and just insert it down in there before I go any further. Now let's go in with a little bit of green. I'm just trying to get it to wrap your eye like a spiral into that with the hints of green. I'm gonna top it off with a little more white. Okay, so that's how that turned out. And I definitely think that it was an improvement over the first. Okay, so you can definitely, you know, change the look quite a bit just with painting. So there's that. And I think that I'm going to go ahead and do the two bigger ones like this one. So I'm pretty stoked with how it came out. This was the original that I painted, and then this is the more crisp version that we just did. Definitely think it adds a lot. I think that the extra 10 millimeters helped a lot. This is the bigger version. I'm still debating. I might go back and add a little bit more white into those really black areas, but anyways, I think I'm gonna put this one up at my office and this one to protect the wall, and then I'll make another one to sell. So it's available on Cold 3D. I ended up putting the large one above my office, and I think it actually looks really nice with the peacock one. So slowly but surely we're making my office look a little bit cooler. And just as a preview to what's coming, I started playing around with the 3D model rendering a little bit more, and it is super fun and makes some pretty awesome stuff actually. I was playing around in Midjourney trying to do an Isis figure actually, but I ended up putting this Viking helmet on her, and it's more of a Valkyrie look, so I think that's fun too. And then I was trying to make some more Valkyrie, and this has a nice like little bit of a forward, about to take flight feeling, so I think it's super fun. Obviously if you're trying to do anything serious you would have to go and add more detail, but I think her arms are nice and, you know, has some fun little detail in there, and especially as just a little game board piece or whatever, then it's kind of fun. This is printed at 75 millimeters. Both of these two were done on this website, which is either Sculpt OK or Sculpt Oklahoma. I'm not super sure, but you know, it has its drawbacks. It's not always perfect. You can see this image that I had in Midjourney. I'll put a better one up. You can see that image that I had in Midjourney, and this is what it turned out with, which is so funny to me. I was trying to put my finger on what it reminded me of, and I thought it was like a xenomorph, but then I finally figured out I think it's that bad guy from Monsters Inc. I almost called it Monsters Incredible. I don't know my movies. Oh, but that's the fun of AI. If it was perfect every time, there would be no challenge and there wouldn't be these moments of joy. So, anyways, I do really love doing these more depthy reliefs, but this takes a blender add-on and a couple different tactics. So you can see that these have way more depth compared to these relatively flat prints. I did want to point out that the blender add-on is really beautiful and creates some really great depthy projects, but it has its limitations, like this here, where it has a pretty dramatic fallout point at a certain point, whereas on this website it seems as if the depth maps are really beautifully detailed to be sculpted all the way down to cover more of those nuances, if you know what I mean. So, and the fact that it can do this with the 3D models and the 360-degree view is pretty mind-blowing. So that's why I'm still very impressed with this website. But they both have their separate looks. I go back and forth depending on what I'm going for, but for anyone that doesn't have the option of Blender at all and has a 3D printer but no way to make stuff, then this website is fantastic to make stuff like this. So it's not perfect, but sometimes it is really beautiful and detailed, and it's super user-friendly, so anyone can get on and give it a try, even if you don't know how to do 3D modeling. You should give this website a try. It's super fun.